Hey everyone, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more great content.
1. The small intestine is bigger than the large intestine. The human body is pretty weird. The small intestine measures at 20 feet long and 1 inch in diameter. Meanwhile, the large intestine is 5 feet long and 3 inch in diameter. Essentially, the small intestine is larger than the large intestine. 2. 90% of U.S. money has cocaine on it. Either from exposure or drug use, a study revealed that 90% of the dollars circulating in the economy have cocaine on it. Traces of cocaine were found reaching 0.006 micrograms, several thousand times smaller than salt. The green dye on dollars causes cocaine residue to stick to the bills. 3. Hell is real. There's an actual village in southern Norway named Hell. However, it may not be true to its name. The weather in Hell is consistently below 20 degrees Celsius, with lows dropping to negative temperatures. 4. Lara Croft's PS1 proportions were a mistake. When Toby Gard was editing the character model for Lara Croft, he mistakenly typed 150% instead of 50% for Croft's bust size. The proportions we see on the PS1 game were a result of this error. 5. In some parts of Texas, it is illegal to cuss in front of a dead person. You can't swear in front of a corpse in Texas. In Reno, possession and distribution of sex toys is also illegal. 6. Some people experience post-sex sadness. If you've ever felt intense feelings of sadness, anger, and distress after sex, you may have gone through post-coital dysphoria, PCD. It happens especially after orgasm. 7. People have tried to sue God. Again, it sounds like one of the made-up funny facts, but people have actually filed lawsuits against God, for reasons you can imagine. Negligence, failure to keep people away from the devil, and other harmful acts of God are quoted in most of these cases. 8. Uranus was first named George. When William Herschel first discovered the planet in 1781, the English astronomer named it the Georgium Sidus, the Georgian planet, in honor of King George III. 9. Twilight was as intense as you remember. If you splice the quiet staring in all 5 films together, there is exactly 26 minutes of intense silence. 10. A man once wore 60 shirts and 9 pairs of jeans to the airport to avoid extra fees. In a flight from China to Africa, a man wore 60 shirts and 9 pairs of jeans because he didn't want to pay for extra baggage. He wore it throughout an 11.5-hour flight. 11. Carrots can turn you orange. If you eat 3 large carrots a day for several weeks, the increased beta-carotene in your blood could turn your skin orange. 12. Cows hate country music. You'd think that cows would vibe with country music, but it's actually not the case. According to research, cows produce 3% less milk when listening to country music. The study was conducted on a Scottish herd of 45 cows, which were made to listen to classical music and country music. With classical music, their milk produce increased, with one particular cow making 1 liter more milk than usual. However, with country music, 44 cows were observed to yield 3% less milk. 13. A man once legally changed his name for losing a bet. After losing a drunken poker bet, a New Zealand man had his name legally changed to Full Metal Havoc, more sexy and intelligent than Spock and all the superheroes combined with Frost Nova, in 2009. After 5 years, the name was approved by the government. Now, all 99 characters of his new name are on his government documents. 14. Dolly Parton once lost a Dolly Parton lookalike contest. Dolly Parton once entered a celebrity lookalike contest as herself, and lost. The contest was held in a San Francisco club. In order to somewhat disguise herself, Parton exaggerated her features with makeup. However, she got the least applause of all contestants, and ultimately lost to a drag queen. 15. Peanuts are used to make dynamite. Aside from giving some people explosive diarrhea, peanuts can also be used to make actual explosives. Once peanut oil is processed, it can create glycerol, which, in turn, can be used to make nitroglycerin, one of the main components of dynamite. 16. Vin Diesel is a seasoned voice actor. Vin Diesel might be known by many as Dominic Toretto of the Fast and the Furious franchise, but he's got pipes of a different kind. He voices Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy film series, and voiced the Iron Giant. 17. Game of Thrones Night's Watch cloaks are made from IKEA rugs. Creating something like Game of Thrones takes a lot of painstaking attention to detail to take people to the rugged, sooty world of Westeros. However, you'd be surprised that some of the production design are just from everyday things. Namely, IKEA rugs for the Night Watch's cloaks. IKEA has since released a tutorial for how to make GOT cloaks. 18. Friday the 13th was filmed at an actual camp, and people kept scaring campers away. Camp Crystal Lake might be fictional, but it was shot in a fully functional summer camp. Because of Friday the 13th, people used to scare children away from the camp to the point that the Camp Nova Bosco website used to have a disclaimer against using the film to scare kids. 19. The house from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is now a family restaurant. After shooting the 70s slasher, the suburban house that once saw the horrors of Leatherface was turned into a restaurant. Initially, it was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre-themed restaurant, complete with a Leatherface dummy. However, it was since rebranded as the Grand Central Cafe, with less of a gimmick on the venue being the Massacre House. 20. Your childhood high school shows were all shot in the same place. iCarly, Saved by the Bell, and That's So Raven were all shot in the same school. 21. Lobsters communicate with pee. Lobsters communicate by urinating at each other with the bladders on each side of their heads. 22. The organs in Grey's Anatomy surgeries aren't fake. They're cow organs. You were probably expecting something more dark, huh? Using synthetic organs for the operation scenes would have been shabby for a medical drama. Additionally, the hands shown in Grey's Anatomy operation close-ups are real surgeons' hands. 23. The Millennium Falcon was inspired by a burger. Sometimes, little everyday things can inspire the big ones. For the Millennium Falcon, that little thing was a burger. The side cockpit is said to be based on an olive. Since then, the Millennium Falcon has gotten flack from generations of Star Wars characters for being affectionately dubbed as a piece of junk. 24. The Simpsons creator intended for Homer Simpson to be Krusty the Clown. If you follow The Simpsons, you'd notice how Homer Simpson and Krusty the Clown look almost identical. Simpsons creator Matt Groening was actually planning to reveal Homer Simpson behind all that clown makeup. However, to avoid the plot from getting too complex, he scrapped the idea. 25. The CDC website has a zombie preparedness section. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention contain and monitor epidemics. However, you'd be surprised that their websites have sections devoted to preparing for the zombie apocalypse. 26. 7% of Christian Americans pray for a parking spot. According to a 2014 survey in Nashville, 7% of Christian Americans pray to get parking spots. Is it really that hard? 27. A man once hired someone to slap him to avoid checking Facebook. Manish Sethi hired a woman to slap him in the face every time he tried checking Facebook at work. He paid the woman $8 an hour. 28. U.S. President Coolidge used to sound emergency bells as a joke. The 30th U.S. president made a habit of sounding the emergency bell placed at his veranda and then hiding when the Secret Service came. He did this enough times to make them remove the bell altogether. 29. There's a company you can pay to kidnap you. The Old Time Realite is a French company that offers kidnapping services. If you pay them a fee, they will come to kidnap you when you least expect it, ropes, binds, and all. They won't do it immediately, though. They'll wait for a certain period so you won't remember that you paid someone to kidnap you. 30. In Russia, you can get fined for driving a car that's too dirty. If the dirt on your car completely obscures your license plate, you might just get fined. 31. Thousands of people write to God yearly. Every year, Jerusalem receives an influx of letters from thousands of people addressed to God. It happens so regularly that there is even of letters to God's Department of the Israeli Postal Service. 32. The CIA spent $25 million on spy cats. In the 1960s, the CIA tried using cats to gather intel on the Kremlin and Soviet embassies. They equipped cats with a batter, microphone, and antenna to record data. You can guess how that turned out. 33. 152 people in the U.S. are named LOL. Laugh out loud, or lots of love. What it means, we may never know, but 152 people have LOL as their legit birth name. Most of these LOLs live in Wyoming. 34. Your brain uses 12 watts of energy to think and does not feel pain. The brain uses 20% of our resting metabolic calorie rate to keep functioning. It does not feel any pain because there are no pain receptors in the brain itself. 35. Anatophobia is the fear of being watched by a duck. A person with anatophobia fears that somewhere in the world, a duck or a goose is watching him, her. 36. Cans of diet soda will float in water, regular soda cans will sink. It sounds ironic, but this funny fact is proven. Cans of regular soda tend to be more dense than water, so they sink. Cans of diet soda are usually less dense than water, so they float. 37. Koalas feed their newborns poop. After baby koalas are born, their parents feed them poop. This helps them digest eucalyptus leaves as they grow. 38. Walt Disney was afraid of mice. Although Disney's most iconic character is a mouse, Walt Disney actually feared mice. 39. The western lowland gorilla's scientific name is gorilla gorilla gorilla. Similarly, the lynx, lynx lynx, and caracal, caracal caracal, are animals that have a repeated scientific name. This happens when the genus and species name of an animal is the same. 40. Horses cannot breathe through their mouths. Horses don't have an instinct to breathe through their mouths because their soft palate seals their pharynx except when swallowing. Horses can't breathe through a sealed pharynx, and that is why they only breathe through their nostrils. 41. Saudi Arabia imports camels from Australia. When you think Saudi, you automatically think of desert sands and camels. It seems like one of the funny facts that are hard to believe, but Saudi does get some of their camels from Australia. Native Saudi camels are used for racing and domestic purposes, but the imported camels are used for their meat. 42. Loofahs are vegetables. If you look at a loofah, you might think it came from a dried sea creature. However, this scrubbing sponge is actually made from a vegetable. Loofahs are made from the fibrous flesh of the mature Loofah aegyptiaca and L. cyclindrica gourd. They're distant relatives of melons and squash. Before reaching maturity, loofah is also edible. 43. Eagles don't mate while airborne. You may have encountered the myth that eagles mate in the air. However, eagles mate on branches or nests. The fact that people even think it's possible is just one of the funny facts. 44. People once claimed that coconuts kill more people than sharks yearly. In a 1984 study, Injuries Due to Falling Coconuts, it was claimed that falling coconuts kill 150 per year, which is a lot more than shark-related deaths at 5 per year. However, it was actually only a misinterpretation of the statistics gathered from Papua New Guinea. However, there have been a number of documented cases of coconuts killing people. Falling coconuts can cause fatal injuries to the head, neck, shoulders, and back. 45. NASA saw 168 errors in the space film Armageddon. The film Armageddon is so scientifically inaccurate that NASA uses it as a test for their management training program. NASA shows the film to new managers and makes them spot as many errors as possible. So far, about 168 have been found. 46. A Lord of the Rings actor would rather hike up a whole mountain than ride a helicopter. One of the things that makes Lord of the Rings lore so rich is the immersive environment of the story's settings. While shooting the films, the cast had to fly to remote locations via helicopter. Sean Bean, who plays Boromir and Ned Stark in Game of Thrones, was afraid of flight and would only do it if he had no choice. During the shootings for the Fellowship crossing snowy mountains, he'd climb for 2 hours every morning to get to the set. He would make the climb already dressed as Boromir. 47. Norway's reality TV is very different. Although reality TV in the US is saturated with Kardashian brand drama, it's very different for Norway. Norway's first significant reality TV show was a broadcast showing the Bergen Line. About 20% of the population watched the train for its entire 7-hour journey. This popularized slow TV. Now, Norwegians would watch coastal cruises, people knitting, and bird feeding. I guess that's their ASMR. 48. Big Brother US only showed news from the outside world on one day. One of the main gimmicks of Big Brother is that the contestants are not allowed to be a part of the outside world. Communication was barred from their loved ones and they weren't allowed to keep up with current events. However, the producers of Big Brother delivered the news to housemates just once during the 9/11 attacks. 49. Pringles are not potato chips. From 2007 to 2009, Pringles had a court issue where judges debated whether Pringles were potato chips or not. In 2009, it was ruled that they were potato chips. However, Pringles are actually just 42% potato, the rest is made of wheat. 50. Watermelon is Oklahoma's state vegetable. Here's another case of are tomatoes fruits or vegetables? You may remember differently from preschool, but watermelons are actually classified as a fruit and a vegetable. Watermelons came from the cucumber and gourd families, which are vegetables. So, in 2007, Oklahoma declared the watermelon as their state vegetable. Their state fruit? Strawberries.
51. Lachnophobia is the fear of vegetables. The word originates from Greek lachno, vegetables, and phobos, fear or aversion. This may be one of the funny facts that sound like we're just making things up, but there is actually a medical diagnosis for the fear of veggies. In 2009, a woman was diagnosed with the condition. However, since she had a baby to care for, she overcame her phobia. 52. There were over 300 banana-related injuries in Britain in 2001. Over 300 banana-related accidents were reported in Britain in 2001, mostly involving people slipping on skins. 53. This Star Wars actor rolled around in the sand before shoots. In order to give Obi-Wan Kenobi a desert-worn, rugged look, Alec Guinness would lay on the Tunisian desert floor and roll around, in his costume. 54. George Lucas got stuck in the Jaws shark's head. During a set visit, George Lucas thought it would be funny to stick his head in Bruce the shark's head. Steven Spielberg closed the jaws of the animatronic shark and George Lucas got stuck inside. So much for funny facts. 55. The voice of the exorcist demon ate raw eggs, chain-smoked, and had herself tied to a chair during recordings. Mercedes McCambridge fully committed to her role as Pazuzu's voice in the 70s horror classic, The Exorcist. Before recording her vocals, she chugged raw eggs, chain-smoked, and drank whiskey to make her voice harsher than normal. One of the most shocking funny facts. During the recordings, she had herself bound to a chair. After all of that dedication, she insisted not to have her voice credited in the film. 56. Bonnie and Clyde's gunshot sounds were so loud, a projectionist kept lowering the volume. Director-star Warren Beatty deliberately made the gunshot sounds in Bonnie and Clyde pop out from the mix. During the film's British premiere, Beatty noticed the projectionist at the cinema lowering the volume because he thought the loud gunshots were due to poor audio mixing. 57. Everyday objects were used for the asteroids in Star Wars. The FX team at Industrial Light and Magic enjoyed choosing which objects they'll throw into the asteroid field for Star Wars scenes, the weirdest ones being a potato and a shoe. 58. Roman Polanski had pee thrown at his face during Chinatown. If you've had any experience making a video group project, you'd know the high-tension environment of productions. Fights are pretty much inevitable, one of the most iconic cinema fights and funny facts. During the shoot for Chinatown, Faye Dunaway asked for her character's motivation in one particular scene. Instead of offering advice, Roman Polanski yelled, "Say the fucking words. Your salary is your motivation." This friction continued until the director wouldn't let Dunaway take a toilet break. Fed up, Dunaway threw a coffee cup with her pee in his face. 59. The cast of Stand By Me accidentally got high from pot. Cookies. According to Kiefer Sutherland, the Stand By Me cast once went to a Renaissance fair near their shooting location. They bought cookies from the fair. However, they had accidentally eaten pot brownies. The crew found Jerry O'Connell high and sobbing somewhere in the park. 60. Forrest Gump has more CGI than Jurassic Park, when Forrest ran through a jungle. In Vietnam and showed his table tennis skills, that was CGI. Even the feather at the opening scene is computer-generated. Overall, Forrest Gump has more minutes of CGI screen time than Jurassic Park. Another one of those funny facts that are hard to believe. 61. Cooking shows are almost always scripted. For most cooking contests, contestants would get the ingredients. They have to use weeks earlier. For restaurant improvement shows, the restaurants they feature usually go bankrupt a month after their episode is aired. 62. There is a Starbucks cup in all frames of Fight Club. Move aside, Game of Thrones. David Fincher directed Fight Club at the height of Starbucks cafes popping up everywhere. He claimed it was too much of a good thing and put a Starbucks cup in every shot of the film. Starbucks allowed their products being shown in the 90s cult classic as long as their shop was not destroyed on film. For the cafe scene, Fincher used the fictional Gratifico coffee instead. 63. Woody was supposed to be a ventriloquist doll in Toy Story. Woody was originally written as the antagonist of the film, a sarcastic bully trying to pit the other toys against Buzz. 64. The Great Reality TV Swindle is exactly what it sounds like. In 2002, 30 people were conned to join a fake reality TV show in the UK. Nick Russian, a bookstore clerk at the time, posed as a TV producer who offered a one-year show. Russian persuaded the participants to leave their homes, quit their jobs and partners. However, there was actually no program deal nor prize money. As a result, most of the 30 contestants went bankrupt. Since then, Nick Russian has not been convicted, since he did not take money from anyone and nobody has been able to track his whereabouts. 65. Reality TV phone calls are almost always fake. Phone calls are a familiar reality TV template, but there's not much reality to them either. It's relatively easy, since the fake conversation can be shot for each speaker and then edited together. 66. A sound engineer once got accidentally high on LSD while cleaning an old radio. When Elliot Curtis tried to restore an old Buchla Model 100 synthesizer, he ended up tripping on 50-year-old LSD. He only noticed a crystalline substance that had gathered on the radio, which he wiped off. Since he found it in a dark closet at a university, the psychedelic components were preserved. The LSD residue dissolved in his hands and got him into a 9-hour trip. How's that for wild, funny facts? 67. In Russia, competitive slapping is a sport. In March 2019, Russia held its first-ever competitive slapping contest. The winning contestant must deliver the hardest slap and endure the longest time being slapped. The contest was tournament-style, with winners for each match facing other winners until one man is left standing. The first-ever champion turned out to be Vasily Kamotsky, nicknamed Pellman or Dumpling. The 370-pound man won 30,000 Russian ruble, $470, 68. A farmer once grew a 10-pound pumpkin and turned it into a boat. People can be strange. One of the craziest funny facts is an actual news headline. For 4 years, Tennessee farmer Justin Ownby grew an almost 1,000-pound pumpkin. When he reached his goal, he hollowed it out and rowed it as a boat in a nearby pond. 69. Scientists have taught rats to drive. According to an experiment, rats can learn how to drive. Scientists made tiny cars with an aluminum floor and a steering wheel made out of 3 copper bars. When the rats stood on the car's aluminum floor and touched the copper bars, they would start an electrical charge that moves the car. By the end of the experiment, they had taught the rats to steer the car in different directions by touching different copper bars. Their secret? Fruit Loops. The scientists conditioned the rats to maneuver different ways by rewarding them with cereal pieces. 70. An Australian engineer once sued his ex-boss for farting on him. In March 2017, David Hinkst sued his ex-boss for repeatedly farting on him in his former job. He sought 1.8 million Australian dollars, 1.28 million worth in damages. Apparently, his boss would fart on him 5 to 6 times a day. But his former supervisor insists he only ever did it once or twice. 71. An octopus can eat its own tentacle. When an octopus is stressed, it may suffer from autophagy or self-cannibalism. In some cases, a stressed octopus can eat its own arms. However, an octopus can lose an arm without pain and regrow it with no problem. Imagine if we did the same when we get stressed. Now that would be one for funny facts. 72. Camels have straight spines. One look at a camel would have you thinking, what are you talking about? These funny facts are lies. However, camel spines are really no different than ours in structure. The hump on their back is not their spine, but an energy reserve entirely made of fat. 73. Slippery dick is a fish. Slippery dick, Halicoeres bevitatus, is a wrasse species found only in the shallow tropical waters of the western Atlantic Ocean. 74. Spotted dick is a dish. We know what you're thinking, but spotted dick is a British dessert popularized in 19th century England. It is a pudding made traditionally with sweat and dried fruit, often served with custard. Spotted referred to the dried fruit pieces, while dick and dog were terms widely used for pudding at the time. 75. Monica and Joey were supposed to be the main friends' romance. The 90s hit show had fans swooning over the romance arcs, but the pairings that ended up together weren't the original plan. Originally, Monica and Joey were supposed to be the endgame. Joey was also supposed to be extra sleazy, even hitting on Rachel, Monica, and Phoebe. However, Matt LeBlanc suggested toning down Joey's character to only flirting with girls outside the main cast. This made Joey way more likable, and gave way to the romances that ended up developing through the course of the series. 76. The blue meth in Breaking Bad is rock candy. Yup, they've been snorting rocks this whole time, but a confectionery kind. Crystal Sky is actually cotton, candy-flavored rock candy. It may have been fake drugs, but the cast and crew were still getting a different kind of high from it. They'd eat the sugary mixture to keep them up during shoots. 77. There's a hilarious continuity error in the opening scene of Sex and the City. If you look closely, you'll notice how in one shot, the bus that splashes Carrie is full of passengers. However, in the next frame, the same bus appears empty. Definitely one of the funny facts that'll make you realize the devil really is in the details. 78. German chocolate cake is named after a guy. Contrary to its name, German chocolate cake named after its creator, an English-American, man named Sam German, not Germany. 79. Sharks can sleep with their eyes open. Some species of sharks have the ability to sleep with their eyes open. This is because they need to keep swimming to breathe, and they can rest while still being alert to their surroundings. 80. People used to dream in black and white. The world may not be black and white now, but there was a time when even dreams were. Before color TV was invented, 75% of people said their dreams were in black and white. However, only 12% does now. 81. Women were once warned of bicycle face disease. In the 19th century, experts warned women of the disease called bicycle face, or getting stuck with the faces they made while riding a bike. 82. Movies have a disclaimer that they're fictional because someone tried to sue Rasputin. Movies have to clarify itself as works of fiction because of a 1930s lawsuit against Rasputin. 83. Fruit salad trees can grow more than one kind of fruit. The aptly named fruit salad tree can grow up to 6 different fruits at the same time. 84. Horizontal refreshment used to be the 19th century slang for sex. I mean, if you think about it, it makes total sense. 85. Since the beginning of newscasting, there has only been one day with no news. April 18, 1930 was such an uneventful day that the BBC's radio announcer said, "There is no news. By 6:30 p.m., 86. You'd get rolled into a burrito if you're a violent drunk in Japan. Japanese police may get a futon and roll you into a burrito if you disrupt the public." 87. All. Mammals take about 12 seconds to poop. This average is regardless of poop size or composition. 88. New Zealand's 90-mile beach is 55 miles long. Name a scam, am I right? 89. The average person laughs 13 times a day. One of the more literal funny facts. A 4-year-old laughs about 300 times a day, while a 40-year-old would only laugh an average of 4 times. 90. Skydiving on a Sunday is illegal for single women in Florida. Unmarried women that are caught committing this crime can face imprisonment or subjected to fines. 91. It took Rubik a month to solve his cube, with 43,252,313,274,489, 856,000 possible combinations. Who could blame him? Aside from the irony, what puts this in funny facts is how the current record holder for the fastest time to solve a Rubik's Cube finished it in 4.22 seconds. 92. Grapes explode in the microwave. Funny facts disclaimer. Don't try this. Do at home. 93. The British royal family can't play Monopoly. It's not really because of a royal decree, like how the Queen can't sit on the Iron Throne since she can only sit on hers. One of the ridiculously unbelievable funny facts. Prince Andrew said playing the game gets too vicious for the royal family. 94. There are fewer real flamingos than plastic flamingos in the world. Plastic flamingos you see on lawns outnumber their living, breathing counterparts. 95. A blue whale tongue weighs as much as an elephant. A blue whale's tongue weighs 2.7 tons, which is almost the same weight as an adult male elephant. 96. Adult cats are lactose intolerant. Ironic as it sounds, feeding your grown cat milk can irritate their bowels. 97. In Kentucky, there are more barrels of bourbon than there are people. It only makes sense since 95% of the world's bourbon comes from Kentucky. 98. Before Alexander Fleming named penicillin, he called it mold juice. It may sound like a term someone coined on Tumblr, but Alexander Fleming did refer to penicillin as mold juice when he discovered it in 1928. 99. If you look strictly at statistics, you're more likely to win an Olympic medal than the lottery. According to statistics, your chances of winning an Olympic gold medal is about 1 in 3.5 million. However, the chances of you winning the lottery is 1 in 14 million. 100. A Canadian university handed out condoms with safe notes stapled on them. In one of the more unfortunate funny facts, a Canadian university's attempt to promote safe Sex went horribly wrong when they handed out condoms with stapled notes. The staples had punctured the condoms, basically defeating its purpose. 101. The founder of Match.com lost his girlfriend to a man she met on Match.com. It may seem like another one of the darkly funny facts, but when his girlfriend left him for a man she met on his site, Gary Kremen didn't even break a sweat. According to Match.com founder, Kremen knew his project was successful when his own girlfriend left him for another man through Match.com.